All right, class is now in session. Please be seated. Thank you for tuning in to another episode of the Culture Bomb with Dr. Phoenix. I am your host, Mr. Sigma Jones. The main man himself, Dr. Phoenix, is here as well. First and foremost, we just want to give a shout out to our subscribers. Thanks for listening in. Thanks for tuning in. We truly appreciate the love and support. Hope you all are doing well this evening or this morning, depending on where you're listening in around the world. We are now here for part two of the session of the Black Cult. And if you did not catch last week's session where we did part one, you'll definitely want to recap on your homework assignment because, yeah, we're definitely going to be moving into the next segment of this series. So, without further ado, let me introduce once again the main man of the hour, and that is Mr. Dr. Phoenix. How's it going, sir?
I am well. Good evening to everyone. Good evening to the Black Romans. Pleasure to be here tonight. Again, thank you for hosting me tonight. It's always a pleasure. Always ready to come in and impart some knowledge to the Black Romans. So as
Mhm.
always, thank you.
Always a pleasure, good sir, because as they say, you bring in the hard hitting content, and we're just here to showcase that because a lot of this is interconnected. That's what some people don't get is we go in and try to showcase why there needs to be self discipline, especially amongst black men, because unfortunately, the culture amongst black men in modern day America, or should I say modern day Black America, isn't too great.
Yeah, mm, the real motivation for last week's stream and this stream and to be honest, the third part of the stream that we'll be doing in the coming weeks is that I obviously I haven't done a culture bond with you in quite a while, and in that time I there's been a few things that I've noticed, and some of the things that I've noticed, for one, black males have allowed a certain segment of Black society to take credit for conversations that were started in this particular part of YouTube. You know, Conversations such as Black men finally realizing that their salvation and that their agenda is completely separate from that of the collective Black America. And more importantly, it is separate from that of Black women. And that has borne fruit, as we've seen in places like Atlanta or Georgia as a example, with the election a few weeks ago, with the gubernatorial election with Stacey Abrams and uh, the sitting governor Kemp.
Mm.
Um, and obviously she lost, and she lost by considerable margin, even far more than she did in 2016. And a huge part of that is because you had less black men voting for it. But one thing I do want to say in that regards is that, you had a lot of pro blacks, B1 types, hoteps, whatever you want to call them. They've been taking credit for starting a conversation among black men about claiming that this was about the interests of black society. No, this was never about the interests of black society. This was about the interests of black men.
Yep.
And these conversations, and what kind of really, in many ways, really pissed me off was that so many black males, whether it's in social media, YouTube, whatever, they've allowed the pro blacks and the hoteps come in and take credit for a conversation that they never started, they never initiated. Because at any time in my as long as I've been alive, and in any recent time, have I ever heard any pro black, any B1 hotep type ever sit here and tell a black male that his salvation is completely separate from that. His agenda, his absolution is completely separate from that of the rest of Black America. If you listen to them, your absolution comes between the legs of a Black woman and the Black community.
Mm.
And the reason why they've been able to sit here and take credit for a conversation that they never started, because their whole conversation was that you shouldn't be involved in the political process as a community. Not that Black men need to carve out this specific part of the political process for themselves because everybody else has, including Black women. But somehow, Black males online and in these social media spaces, Twitter, Facebook, whatever, YouTube, because again, they went after a lot of, we've all seen the news over the past few months. There were a lot of Black females in the media, in the mainstream media, who were actually going after Black men on whether they were on, some of the social media sites or even YouTube. They were going after those brothers. But I want to make something clear, which is that Black men started having this conversation independent of the pro-Blacks and of the community, because it became about what Black men need to do to empower themselves. And the reason why the B ones have been able to the pro-Blacks have been able to come along and take lay claim for it, because simply put, you got a lot of guys in this sector, just on YouTube and in general, who claim that they're for Black male empowerment, but yet they sit over on some of these pro-Black channels, big up and cheering on pro-Blacks that have never given you an example of how, one, they've been successful with the very same women who have worked against you. Because I have not met a brother under 40 years of age who hasn't ran into a Black female, especially for those who are professionals, who are in the academic space or professional space, who ain't ran into a Black female who didn't go out of her way to make your life a living hell. Who made it very clear her goal was to make sure you didn't get no further than where you got. And the reason that these things have happened, because truth be told, so many Black men have still see themselves as the saviors of the Black community. And you can't save a community when you have the other half invested in making sure you get nothing. Invested in making sure that you're subservient to her and her wishes, her will.
Right.
So let's just, I just wanted to say I just want to add that before we get into the main event, because this was something that I kind of sat around for a while. A lot of guys do a lot of double duty. They be over here, even on this channel from time to time, but then I've heard I have to do opposition research. I wouldn't be good. I'd be very bad. I would not be good at doing this if I didn't have to go. I have to save you guys the trouble of listening to some of the nonsense coming out of some of these pro-Blacks, but I have to go listen to them to see exactly what it is, the conversation that these folks are having.
Right.
And I tell you, when I listen to these folks on the replay, and I look at the live chat, because the live chat tells me more than the actual person doing the talking.
Mm-hmm. You're right.
And when the names I see in the live chat are a lot of names that I've seen on a lot of other channels in this sector. I've even seen them over here on this channel. And I guess my question to Black men as a whole is, how do you honestly expect to save a community when the female contemporary, your female counterpart, is wholly empowered by the state to disempower you. And she starts from the cradle, or whether I should say the womb. And see, you need to look no further than really Will Smith and Jada Pinkett Smith. This is a woman who was saved from a life of mediocrity by an A-list husband who happens to be a very productive simp, to be really frank.
Yep.
So no matter how much she offends him, embarrasses him in public, he is always there to defend her honor. We already know the infamous Academy Awards event earlier this year.
The slap heard around the world.
Yeah. For a woman who publicly cheated on you, embarrassed you, and wasn't even sorry about it.
Mm-mm.
And Will Smith is an analog to so many black males. To be frank, majority of black males, black men like you and I, Sigma Jones, understand one thing and one thing very well, which is that black society has been dying a slow death for a long time, long before you and I were ever born.
Oh yeah.
And pro-blacks like to tell you, well, what salvation do you get between legs of another group of women, specifically white women? But better question is, what salvation do you get with what absolution, should I say, you get between the legs of a black female? Because I can show you literacy rates for black children, which we're going to talk about tonight, for black children that are, I would say this much. Children in third world or the developing countries have better literacy and math rates than children here in America, than black children in America.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it is very incumbent upon me, because I'm just gonna I'm just gonna come out and just say it, just come straight up the middle with this, which is that these conversations where they're telling, it's basically the older generations. It's your Gen Xers and your boomers that are coming back telling your millennials and now your Zs that it is their responsibility to save the black community. You know, black folks have been kicking this can down the road now for the past few generations. When Negroes had something that looked like a community, and looked and resembled that of a functioning family unit, black people got something done. Now we've seen that, and again, one can argue that yes, it's not 100. Black people's achievement is not 100% predicated on the fact that you have intact family units, but you know what? It sure as hell help when everybody else does. And you're a solitary black person. You have to get out here in this world and compete against other groups of people who aren't playing along. They have their families in their networks, in their communities, and networks that their communities leverage. And that's who you're playing against. But yet somehow in Black America, we're consistently told as Black men that we need to do all the heavy lifting, and the female counterpart has to do nothing but collectively sit back and reap the benefits of your hard work. And I'm actually really glad to see that a lot of the younger black men, because your Gen Xers and your boomers, really a lot of your older Gen Xers, because I will be honest and say a lot of the younger and the Gen Xers in the middle, they're not so much on board with the BS. But your older Gen Xers, your boomers, oh yeah, these Negroes, yeah, they've been more than happy to sell you uh, a false bag of goods here. And it amazes me how many black males listen to so many pro-blacks that aren't even married, can't even show you how they've been able to do the very thing that they claim you should be doing. None of them have been able to show you how they've been able to conquer that beast. But let's go into our first bit of evidence here. So let's bring up the sound here of our good old buddy Umar Johnson is back at it. So about a week ago, a little over a week ago, he was on the Breakfast Club. He did an interview, and we're gonna listen to roughly about the first 5 minutes of this, because there's something he said that I think pretty much encapsulates what we discussed last week and what we're gonna talk about even more today, or tonight, I should say. So let's get this going. We can just start from the beginning and probably go to roughly about the 5 minute mark.
Will do. All right, here we go. Fair use.
In the morning.
The Breakfast Club.
Morning, everybody. It's DJ Envy, Charlemagne the Guy. We are the Breakfast Club. We got a special guest in the building.
King Kong Consciousness is back.
Dr. Umar Johnson, welcome.
Peace and Pan-Africanism. Brothers, glad to be back.
Glad to have you, man. First of all, you look slim, brother. You done slim down a little bit, huh?
Yes, sir. I think I have. I didn't do nothing intentional, so let me not sit here and lie.
Okay.
I guess it's just, getting older and wiser, I hope.
And first things first, man, congrats on the Frederick Douglass Marcus Garvey Academy. I've been paying attention. I see that you got the building.
Yes, sir.
You've been doing renovations on the building.
Yes,
I saw you put the HVAC in, all kind of other stuff.
We're just about done. Electric is awaiting a permit. HVAC is awaiting controls. They're actually at the school right now. Plumbing is just about done. They got one more piece. Fire alarm is done. They got to check one more piece to that. The monitoring system is done. I'm hoping by the end of the calendar year, we can get our inspection and have a grand opening in February, hopefully.
And you got to get accreditation too, or?
Nah, well, your accreditation comes from the state.
Gotcha.
So it's the state that gives you the license to operate.
Mm-hmm.
If you want accreditation beyond that, you can seek out professional accreditation bureaus, but that's not legally required.
Man, why don't you talk about that more, Dr. Umar, especially being that they tried to clown you for so long about, not having the school.
I don't mind that, because if you know that your mission is genuine, it's no need to respond to the negativity, because at some day, the fruit of your works will manifest.
Ooh.
You follow?
Yeah,
so my thing is, why argue when you know one day they're going to see the school?
Now, talk about the process, because it was a long process.
It was a very long process.
Trials and tribulations and hurdles. So
yes, sir.
Talk about that a little bit and what you had to get through, and also getting funding.
Yes, sir. We took our first donation in St. Louis 2014. We heard about the St. Paul's College, which was an HBCU closed in Virginia. Mm-hmm. They wanted $2 million, so we tried to raise it as quickly as we can. That was a bit ambitious. We didn't succeed. Mm-hmm. It was sold to an Asian company. Unfortunately, an HBCU sold to another race. I think is a great disappointment for us as a people. So then we just started looking for a day school. So I went to Chicago, Detroit, Florida, Ohio, all over the country. I was just flying, looking for a school. Mm-hmm. And then in 2017, I was on LoopNet, which was my main source of new property. And I saw this campus in Wilmington, Delaware, that I had heard about, but never had a chance to see. So I'm on my way to Nat Turner celebration, August 21st, 2017, the Great North American Eclipse. I stopped, I saw the campus. I said, this looks pretty nice. When I got back from Nat Turner, I had to go to Cuba first to get my Ifa initiation. I practiced Yoruba spirituality. Came back from Cuba, and I got a chance to go into the school, and I saw it. I said, we want this school, but they wanted $2 million. We couldn't afford that. We only had $500,000. Mm-hmm. So I negotiated with them from August of 17 until February of 19, and they finally decided to sell us the building for the money that we had.
Wow.
So now we got the building. So what's been going on the past 3.5 years? Getting contractors who you can trust to help you with it. And contractors were not kind to us, man. They ripped us off. They scammed us. They
Con.
stole out the building. The con is real. The con and contractor
I've been dealing with it for the last 5 years.
is very real, brother.
Absolutely.
And then finally, we had our second FDMG festival this past
Hold
September
on for a
10th.
second.
And I said, you know what? We made
So, in all fairness to Umar Johnson, he is not lying about the school. I did do some research. I checked it out. He legitimately has a school. He's had it for quite some time. He has been doing renovations. The problem is, which he just acknowledged, which is they've been dealing exclusively with Black contractors,
Mm-hmm.
which kind of goes into something that you and I we talked about in the past before on some previous culture bombs, where how can I be? You know, a lot of folks will sit here, a lot of Black males will sit here and tell you, well, you know, why go to college? You know, college just put you in debt. You can go get a trade. But here's the problem. He had to pick these contractors, which he's going to explain over the course of the next couple minutes. We'll finish playing it here. He had to go with the Black contractors because they were the one that had the licenses that he needed for permits. So again, this is a school that he's renovating, rehabbing, whatever, you know. And so because he's going to be offering this to the public, a service to the public, you have to have building inspectors. So these have to be inspected by the city, by the fire department, because you have to have a working sprinkler system, working fire alarms. You have to make sure you have adequate exits and they function. And so the what I'm getting at here is that so many Black males, and most, I would say, tell you about doing the trades, but somehow they get in the trades and there's always seems to be a lot of BS and a lot of chicanery going on.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of jankiness that goes on with Black contracts. Because I can tell you from personal experience, I owned a couple rental properties over the past few years. And I can tell you personally, I've had Black contractors because I try to make it a conscious point to try to really, truly give brothers a chance, and I have not, in every Black contract I've had, I've literally had to go hire some non-Black folks to fix whatever they screwed up.
Mm.
And pretty much every Black person I know who ever had rental properties or they had some work done on their home or whatever the case may be, and they use Black contractors, the job was always crappy. It was always some real shisty stuff going on, really shady stuff going on. And and this seems to be pretty much really the culture among your Black business owner, your contractors specific. So, but let's continue. Let's hear a couple more minutes, and then I think we should be done with that. We'll talk some more about it.
They have to step outside the African American community to get this done because we've been waiting 3 years for our people to help us, not for free.
Mm-hmm.
We could afford to pay them, but they wasn't being honest with us and straight up. And of course, we know that's not all of our contractors. We want to be clear. We've met a lot of decent contractors along the way, but the ones who we had to use because they was licensed and certified where we are, they didn't really do us right. So I said, let's go with some white folks. And guess what? Here we are 90 days later, and the white contractors have gotten us to the finish line in 3 months versus 3 years waiting on our own people.
So what does that say?
It says that we need the Frederick Douglass and Marcus Garvey Academy.
Or
It says that Black boys have to be raised and trained in how to be Black men and how to be committed to the Black community, because I think as a community, we've lost our integrity, our honor, our loyalty, and our commitment. If I was who I am for Black people, for the Mexican American community, that school would have been done 3 years ago. If I was who I am to the Asian community, the Anglo-Saxon community, the Native American community, that school gets done the first year we purchased it.
Mhm.
We're not sitting here 3.5 years after purchase, just now getting to the finish line and needing white people to get us there.
And
You
what is the curriculum going to look like?
We,
You
our,
can
in
stop it
addition
there.
to your,
You can stop there.
Okay, so Here's-
there you
yeah,
go.
I got some questions about this. So you just said, Dr. Umar, that you had hired some black contractors who for 3 years were lazy, doing a half-ass job, pardon the language, and was simply not getting the job done. So then you revert to get some white contractors. They were able to finish the job in 3 months. But somehow, after all their experience, you believe that you still need to have this school be black staffed for just black boys? Ugh. That's literally trying to put the cart before the horse.
Yeah, there is some gray area with that. There's definitely some gray area. I'll also add to that. I think the important reason why I specifically brought this up, it wasn't about the school Logic's finest. It wasn't really about the school itself. It was about the black ethic.
Right. That's what I'm getting out of this whole thing is
You
fact
heard it
that-
out of the horse's mouth.
right. The mere fact that he hired black contractors and he still ended up going to hire white contractors to finish what the black contractors were supposed to do, that says a lot.
Yeah, more importantly, he highlights something about the lack of honor and integrity.
Mm-hmm.
And anyone that has dealt with black businesses will tell you honor and integrity is something that's sorely lacking dealing with a lot of black businesses. In my opinion, I would argue that's been my experience dealing with probably 9 out of 10 of them. So it wasn't about the school itself, Logic's finance. It wasn't about that. It was about the black ethic, which goes to the black cult, which goes to the theme of this of this series we're doing called the Black Cult. That's why I used it. It wasn't really about the school. I can care less about the damn school, to be honest with you. Because at the end of the day, even if he can sit butts into the seats and get it adequately staffed, none of that hotep crap or stuff like that. You still have children that have to one, they will have to abide by the common core curriculum, as well as that they will have to be able to pass standardized testing. And so that's really the meat and bones of can this schooling really, can the students at the school really can cut the mustard here? Can they be academically competitive with their non-black peers? Hell, even their black peers that are in the charter schools or public schools. Although that's a pretty low bar to meet, but you know. So it wasn't, just to be clear here, it was not about the school. It was about, I want, just like last week with Tariq, I want you guys to hear this out of these pro-black mouths. I've been telling you guys this forever. They know what the damn problem is.
Mm-hmm.
It's only when they have to deal with the BS that they actually admit what the problem is. And you just heard Umar Johnson admit it took the white folks 3 months to do what Negroes couldn't do in 3 years. And he understands exactly why that happens because, yeah, there is a lack of integrity and honor among black males today.
Mm-hmm. Yes, sir.
Black men don't get along as a collective, which is why you got Negroes who allow pro-blacks to hijack the damn message that black men on YouTube started talking about damn near a decade ago about what are the best interests for Black men. Not the community, not Black women, but Black men. Because Negroes didn't stick to their damn message. They never had any, it was never their purpose. They never did that to begin, that was never their purpose in the first place.
Right.
This is very much an issue of integrity. And integrity is not just something that's devoid in most Black males today. It's something that's devoid in Black America, period. So just to be clear.
Right on, right on.
So let's did you have anything you want to add to this? Or otherwise we could probably just move on to
No, it's pretty straightforward. You know,
yeah.
if the man of Pan-Africanism, as they want to call him, if he himself has to admit that he gets better business by dealing with non-Black contractors than actual Black contractors, what have we been talking about this whole time? Supposedly in the Black manosphere space.
Yeah, and that's the thing where you have, and I'm glad that you actually mentioned that, because within the Black manosphere or Black winosphere, whatever you want to call them, you have Black males that have been talking about, well, you don't need college degrees, you can go do trades. But here's the damn problem. When you got Negroes doing trades, they do crappy work. There's a lack of integrity coming straight from the outset, okay? From the very first interaction, there is no integrity there. And I know this is things that you guys have talked about in the Black Ronin series. You talk about some of the principles of Bushido, the samurai, where honor and integrity is a principal part of your character. You cannot separate the two. And honor and integrity is not something that white supremacists did to you. That's something that Black people do to each other.
Mm-hmm.
That's the point. I think we get, I don't really have any more to say. I did just wanted to bring that up because I just like last week with Tariq, it wasn't really about even Deion Sanders. It was really about the culture in Black America.
Mm-hmm.
And the clips that we played last week of Tariq Nasheed, now the clip he had of Umar Johnson doing his interview on the Breakfast Club, they both reinforce what has been said, on the culture bomb. And, obviously I'm not the first person to say these things. We've all have dealt with these issues in our personal lives, in our professional lives. And, you dealt with it in academia, you dealt with it at every stage of your life and in every setting. And so again, these things become sort of this indelible part of why we came up with the idea of the culture bomb, and specifically this series, The Black Cult. This is part of this dark art of Black America. These dark arts, the things that don't really get discussed. We're quick to say everything is white supremacy, but we don't say that when it's Black people screwing over other Black people. And these are issues that occur every single day in Black America. Black people screwing over Black people. Well, let's go on, sir.
All right, so I do have the next article up, and here we go.
Okay, give me a second here. Yeah, so this one here, sir. So for the brothers here who are not familiar with this, so everyone knows that the census occurred earlier this year, and so a lot of the data, we haven't really seen the fallout of the census, at least as it relates to Black America completely yet, because a lot of data is just coming out. But, however, one thing did come out based on the census here in Atlanta, which is that Atlanta has the highest income inequality in the nation. And the reason that this is important is because for the longest time, we've heard about black folks having black people having this so-called Atlanta being a mecca of Black America. It's this place of black folks just rolling in the dough, got plenty of money, and the census says otherwise. So, are you ready, sir?
All right. Let's go ahead and get right into this.
yeah. So here, I'll start off here. So, okay. So this article was actually written about 2 weeks ago, November 28th of this year.
So look like the content here, you have to be a subscriber.
Well, I have it. I have it. It's
okay. Well, if you like, you can share the screen.
Okay.
Yeah, we can see it from your side.
Okay. Let's see here. Okay. Let me see. Share my screen. Let me see how do I do this here.
Yeah, so you should see the present button towards the bottom of the StreamYard. And then once you click that, you'll see where it says share screen.
Okay. I don't think it's not giving me that. I don't think it's giving me that option here. Hold on, let me see. Let's see. Hold on, let's see here. Yeah, I don't think it's giving me that option here. So.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't think it's giving me that option. Yeah, no, I don't think it's giving me the option here. So.
Not a problem. Well, this is a class session, so good sir, you could, as they say, you could just wing it like a theater.
I'll just read out. It's fine. It's no worries. So okay. So again, this article was written roughly about 2 weeks ago, November 28th of 2022. So it starts out by saying Atlanta has the highest income inequality among large U.S. cities, according to recent data from the United States Census Bureau. Driving much of Atlanta's income inequality, experts say, is the city's entrenched racial disparities, which took root generations ago. Even as the city continues to prosper, many Black Atlantans, in particular, have been left out of its economic success story of the past several years there. The persistent economic struggles have been exacerbated by general inflation, especially rising food and gas prices, which are hitting lower income residents hard. When a very large percentage is vulnerable to that kind of economic pressure, it says that we have a lot to work to do, says Kyle Wade, president and CEO of the Atlanta Community Food Bank, which is experiencing soaring demand for services. The city's dubious ranking is based on a measure of income inequality known as the Gini coefficient, used by economists and organizations across the globe. The latest census data spans a 5-year period from 2016 to 2020. The Gini coefficient measures how equally income is distributed among the population and is expressed in a decimal format ranging from 0 to 1. A score of 0 represents complete income equality within a community, meaning that every person has equal income. The higher the decimal score, the greater the inequality. A coefficient of 1 represents the most extreme concentration of wealth at the top. One person holds all of the wealth. Atlanta has the largest gap between poor and wealthy among cities, with more than 100,000 residents with a Gini coefficient of 0.5786, according to census data. By comparison, New Orleans is ranked number 2 with a Gini coefficient of 0.56. New York occupies the number 7 spot with a Gini coefficient of 0.54. Tampa number 8. Phoenix has a Gini coefficient of 0.47. And More Equality ranking it number 119 on the list. So that's kind of your backyard. census data going back more than a decade shows Atlanta's high inequality has persisted through the years. Atlanta has led the nation in this dubious ranking for at least a decade. 10 large cities with the most income inequality. So basically, if you look at the well, you guys can't really see it, but there's actually a map and has about 10 cities on it, but not really important because the focus here is Atlanta. So Atlanta continues to benefit from strong economic growth, as does Georgia. The metro has 17 of the state's 19 Fortune 500 companies. So within Atlanta alone, and again, Atlanta is not the largest metro here, okay? Compared to, New York or LA or Chicago even, Atlanta is actually a bit further down in the actual size and population, comparatively speaking. However, it houses 17 Fortune 500 companies. So that kind of tells you really the concentration of Fortune 500 companies within Atlanta. Some of the big ones you know of are Delta, Home Depot, Coca-Cola, for example. But the point is that the concentration of these Fortune 500 companies is pretty high, comparatively speaking. Mm. And the state continues to rank among the most attractive in the country to do business. But many Black residents are not seeing the benefits of this success, says Janelle Williams, co-founder of the Atlanta Wealth Building Initiative. Oh, I got some data from them as well, too, to go along with this. The median household income for a Black family in Atlanta is $28,000, while the median income for white families is roughly $84,000.
Wait, Doc. The median income for Black families is not even 30 grand? It's less than that?
It's $28,000.
Wow.
Compared to white families is $84,000.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
That's a 60,000 difference.
Yeah.
Please continue, sir. Please continue.
Oh, yeah, it gets worse. Believe me, it gets worse. Within Atlanta, the wealth gap often can be seen in stark geographic terms. Buckhead in the north is majority white and among the city's wealthiest areas. Thomasville Heights in southeast Atlanta is majority Black and among the city's poorest neighborhoods, according to census data. Experts point to several factors in Atlanta's past and present that have contributed to the wealth gap, including pervasive redlining, mass incarceration, gentrification, and the lack of healthcare access within Atlanta, most recently highlighted by the closure of the Atlanta Medical Center this month. So for those who are not familiar with Atlanta, so basically Atlanta is pretty much a tale of two cities. It's basically Atlanta is divided between North and South, to be frank here. Basically, if you were to take the I-75, which runs north and south through Atlanta, it would pretty much bisect the northern, because basically the I-75 feeds into the 400, which the 400 goes north and south as well. But 400 takes you right through Buckhead and into the perimeter part of Marietta and Alpharetta, which are some of your more affluent parts of the metro. Arguably, Alpharetta is actually its own city, but Buckhead is pretty much half of Buckhead is bisected by the 400 for the most part. So you can take Lenox Road, and anyone that's been in Buckhead, you can take Lenox Road. Lenox Road takes you directly to the 400. In fact, the Lenox Road actually takes you not just to the 400, but to the Lenox Mall. And so basically, if you come off the 400, going into Buckhead, which is the I think exit 2 on the 400, you can take that And literally, you get off the 400, you're on Lenox Road. You take the Lenox Road about 3/4 of a mile down, you're at the Lenox Mall. And basically, that's really the heart of Buckhead. And so you're right in the middle of Buckhead and Lenox Mall. In fact, not only is Lenox Mall there, right across the street from Lenox Mall is the Atlanta Journal-Constitution. And right behind that is actually the business district within the Buckhead. It's the Atlanta Business District, which is right in the heart of Buckhead, which includes Equifax. Yeah, some other places. In fact, there was a Manosphere meetup at a hotel that was directly across the street from the Lenox Mall.
Uh-oh.
We ain't gonna talk about that. So, and the reason I bring this up, and the reason why this is important, because if people don't know, Atlanta has had a black mayor for almost 50 years now. There has not been a non-black mayor in Atlanta since 1974. So remember, the current mayor of Atlanta, Andre Dickens, he was just voted in like a year or so ago. And he is in a long line of black mayors that have been in office in Atlanta since 1974. And by the time he comes up for re-election, it will be approximately 50 years that Atlanta black folks have been putting black mayors in office in Atlanta, and they haven't gotten a damn thing for that.
50 years, almost half a century.
Yeah.
And go ahead, sir. Go ahead.
No, go ahead. No, go ahead. I didn't mean to.
I'm just trying to think from a rational standpoint. You have 50 years to put your guy or your people, as you know, the pro-blacks like to say, in office, in these seats of power to help make things somewhat better for your people. But all you have to show is the average black family income is $60,000 less than their white counterpart.
Yeah, and I agree with MOT's point. I agree with it 100%. If I can just be really frank here, black folks in Atlanta be on straight bullshit. Can I? I don't even know
Sir,
I don't even know any other way to put it.
This is your session. Speak your mind, good sir. Speak your mind.
I said, I've been going back and forth between Atlanta and the Midwest now for about a year or so. And the stuff that I've seen here in Atlanta over the past year, I'm telling you, I've lived in Buckhead, lived in Midtown, and I am telling you, black folks go to you would think black folks got it going on here. I mean, you got Negroes out here. Every Negro got a brand new Scat Pack or a Hellcat. They got every Negro sitting up here at Saks Fifth Avenue. Anyone knows if you go along Peachtree Avenue, right across the street from the Lenox Mall is another high-end shopping center that has like Tom Ford, Saks Fifth Avenue, Nordstrom's. So basically, it's like one big shopping area right there at the corner at that intersection between Peachtree and Lenox Road. But I do want to say that as a whole, you know, so much of what's been going on in Atlanta that I've been seeing now, I mean, to be really honest, I mean, it's pretty damn sad. A lot of black folks messing around, not taking the situation serious. You sit up here, you go to Midtown, and you got the Asian kids done Asians done pretty much taking over Midtown in Georgia Tech and Emory. You go a little further south, go to downtown Atlanta, which is where that hospital that they were talking about is actually Atlanta WellStar. Earlier this year, I think it was over the summer, that they're actually announced, the hospital administration announced that they were closing the hospital there. And so anyone that's ever been to that part of Atlanta, you've been to that downtown section of Atlanta, because that's essentially where Georgia State is at, where the main campus is at. And when I tell you the homelessness in that area is off the charts, it is off the damn charts. I've never seen homelessness on that scale. I would say is comparable to what you see on Skid Row. I mean, anyone that drives along Peachtree, Spring Street, you'll see it. Once you get around that downtown area, that GSU area, there's like a church. I can't remember the name of the church. And no, it's not the Ebenezer Baptist Church. That's a little further away. But there's another main church that services the homeless population there, and you just drive on the streets there alone, and you just see scores of Black folks, drug addicts, just on the streets. Too many, more than you can count. And unfortunately, I don't see where Black folks have really been making strides for a city that's commonly referred to as your Black Mecca. And the reason this is important is because you had something that I don't know if anyone who follows Atlanta or been to Atlanta in over the past year, if they've known about some of the stuff that's going on here. So anyone that's familiar with Atlanta knows that there's actually quite a bit of crime here. Lots of shootings at a lot of Black businesses, a lot of Black nightclubs and strip clubs. And so earlier this year, they actually, there was a proposal in the city council to start giving out citations to businesses where they have repeat occurrences of shootings and just violence in general. And so you had Killer Mike, who spoke out. Him and I think the owner of Magic City, which it goes without saying, most folks know what Magic City is. He made a very interesting statement. You can Google this. You can probably find the comments he made before the city council in Atlanta. And he specifically says something that kind of really struck me as kind of some BS, if you will, which is that he said that, and I'm paraphrasing here, that Atlanta is the only city in America where your Black entertainers have also become your Black business class. And I will argue that in some respects that is true, because most of the Black businesses here in Atlanta are not anything that's about to drastically change the trajectory for Black folks in Atlanta. It's not like building a tech hub like you see over on Piedmont Road, that has an initiative with Georgia Tech and Microsoft or anything like that. No, it's basically a bunch of nightclubs and night spots and restaurants. And so it's not anything that really benefits anyone other than the people who built the business. It doesn't really help the community. It doesn't do none of that stuff. Even though a lot of folks try to tell you it helps the community, it doesn't. Because just a bunch of women being able to go there and you see them half naked or doing whatever doesn't really change the fact that Black folks have so little money, but spend so much of it on nonsense. And so, yeah, let's continue with this. I'm not sure. I'm not sure if I understand what MOTs. If he was asking a question, or I'm not sure if I understand it. So, if you mind repeating it, I will answer. But anyhow, experts point to several factors in Atlanta's past and present that. Oh, I think I read that. I'm sorry. Several of those facts have not translated into new realities for Black people in this city born south of I-20. So if anyone doesn't know, I-20 runs west, east-west. I-20 takes you into Alabama, pretty much runs through the southwestern part of the United States. So runs southeast to southwest, I should say. And so Georgia Gwinnett College economics professor Jason Delaney says that the Gini index is a well-tested and widely used metric among economists, but he notes there are some limitations. It does not account for the cost of living standards, nor does it account for the geographic distribution of wealth, he said. In Atlanta's case, many middle-class neighborhoods in Cobb, DeKalb, and Stone Mountain are left out of the calculation. City boundaries are incredibly political, Delaney said. The census defines metropolitan and micropolitan areas as those which are economically and socially intertwined with the population center. In this case, Atlanta. Looking at the broader definition, the picture is rosier for the Atlanta metro area. The Atlanta metro ranks number 227 for income inequality with a Gini coefficient of 0.4708, significantly better than the New York metro area, number 39, and the Houston metro, number 117. But while comparisons between cities are imperfect, so is the definition of Atlanta metro, which includes 29 counties stretching from Georgia's western and northern borders. Williams and Team Trailer, Atlanta Wealth Building Initiatives, other co-founders say a mix of race-neutral and race-explicit strategies, such as providing capital to Black-owned businesses, are needed to address Atlanta's wealth gap. What happened in the city happened with intent. So we want to be intentional about how we address harm and Black people being locked out, Williams said. We do it with deep love for our city. Here's the thing about businesses here in Atlanta. The business that Black folks are building are not the same as what other groups of people are doing. Other groups of people here in Atlanta, for example, let's take Latinos and Asians, for example. So if you drive north along Peachtree Road, it'll take you past Buckhead into an area called Brookhaven. And then a little further north of that, you go into Chamblee, and finally you go into an area called Doraville. So Doraville, if anyone knows, is right off the 285. It's bisected by the 285. In fact, if you take Peachtree Road north, you'll run into a very bright, vibrant Korean community. So you go there, they have something called an H Mart, which is a massive grocery store. And in the grocery store, you go there, you can pretty much buy anything you can think of for the most part. But the grocery store is just one part of this giant shopping center, if you will. That includes everything from they even have a gaming lounge where folks go there. They have gaming tournaments, stuff like that. But the reason I bring this up is because you can go there any day of the week, especially right now because a lot of kids are out. They're all from college. They're out, out of school for the holidays or whatever. And you go there. If you go there, you will see all these young Asian kids, and truth be told, you'll see a lot of young Black kids there too. Hanging out with the Asian kids, a lot of young brothers got some Asian girls on their arm. And you go there, And the businesses that the Asians have built are meant to service everyone, including the younger folks, especially the younger people.
Mm.
Meanwhile, in Atlanta, you have black businesses. Anyone that's ever gone to the typical black business in Atlanta is going to be one or two things. It's either going to be a restaurant or it's going to be some night spot. There's nothing. Basically, is places for dudes to go and screw up all their money on women, whether it's at the restaurants or anything like that. There's nothing in between. You can't even, if you want to just go to, there's probably one place I've been to in the time in Atlanta where I can honestly say, well, yeah, you can have a nice quiet dinner. The most black restaurants you go to in Atlanta is going to be loud, boomy music. You're going to be waiting forever just to get an order. And that's just for them to even take a damn order to begin with. Or you can just go throw all your money away at the strip clubs. That's pretty much the bulk of your black businesses. And of course, everyone's favorite, the barbershops.
Oh yeah, hair. Can't forget about hair.
But there are no businesses that reflect. There are very few businesses in Atlanta that reflect that of your black professionals. Yeah, I mean, even a lot of folks, like Atlanta is a major area for transportation, a major hub for transportation. Not a whole lot of black folks in the transportation area like that. At least any that I've come across. And for the most part, part of what, and while I would not discount systemic issues, no, I would not. I'm also going to say a lot of what's going on with this major income gap between black and white families here in Atlanta is that, yeah, it's because a lot of the black folks in Atlanta ain't been doing what they needed to do. So now when they came back, now they're sitting here telling you, well, it's all these immigrants, folks. Anyone that would have came to Atlanta 15, 20 years ago, you didn't really have Latinos in Atlanta like that. First time I ever came to Atlanta was probably about 15 years ago. Actually, a little less than that. I take that back. Maybe about 10, 12 years ago. But yeah, you didn't really have Latinos. There wasn't a major Latino presence in Atlanta like that. If you went back 10, 15 years in Atlanta, not at all. But now you have Latinos everywhere, especially you go to Cobb County and Marietta, Latinos all over the place. And they have businesses where they're doing everything from contracting to landscaping and everything else in between. They got the traditional stuff you see the Latinos do, the restaurants and all that, but they also got a lot of folks who are in the industry, who are contractors, builders. And you don't see Negroes like that. Well, I guess they do exist, but your boy Umar Johnson just said it before. They're too busy screwing over other black folks.
I mean, no offense to black businesses out there and all. I know there's some people that are doing it right, black men and black women, but I'm just gonna be honest. The majority are just not that great. When it comes to the fact that you have to, because sometimes I see this on like DoorDash and Uber Eats, especially around February, when they run this campaign of please support black businesses and all. And I'm thinking to myself, if your business is that bad to where you gotta have other businesses try to promote you just so you can stay afloat, that means you're running it in the gutter. You're surviving just by minimum task, not thriving.
Yeah, and that's, I mean, Granted, I like I said, I'm not going to take away anything from any and say that there's not any systemic issues because, obviously there are systemic issues. This is still Georgia. This is still the South we're talking about. Okay.
Right.
But I don't think people really know the history of Atlanta like that. If you came here, if anyone that's ever come here in the early 2000s, early 2010s in Atlanta, you know that Atlanta was the home of hip hop and R&B for the longest time. When it came to black entertainment, Atlanta was the capital. Some of your biggest acts of the last 2 decades have come out of Atlanta.
Right.
And, I've heard people say, well, Atlanta is one of the few places where black folks built something looking like an economy. And no, they didn't build an economy here. Because I'll tell you what I run into here. I run into a lot of really young non-black folks driving a lot of expensive cars, living in $3,000 a month apartments and condos. Ain't even old enough to drink, but you got $100,000 Tesla. Barely old enough to drink, but you drive $130,000 Porsche and living in a $3,000 a month apartment in Buckhead. And what I'm telling you is that black folks have failed, and specifically the black males in Atlanta have failed the younger generations. Pardon me. I mean, they have completely failed them. Your black academics here in Atlanta have failed. You can't even get you talk to the average young person in Atlanta today. Despite Atlanta having world-class universities right in the middle of the metro, despite all of the industries that they can get their hands on. And I mean, Atlanta has everything from a cybersecurity initiative, a tech village. Actually, they have a couple of them here. And you can't find young black folks that are looking to try to get in this stuff. I mean, you damn near have to drag them kicking and screaming. But meanwhile, the non-black counterparts, same age, 17, 18. Hell, I met kids at 10, 12 years old. They already know what they're trying to do. They're 12 years old, so yeah, I'm going to Georgia Tech. I'm going to Emory. And yet, despite everything, that's been going on in Atlanta over the last couple decades, black folks have truly failed to take advantage of it. I mean, yeah, you have had some black mayors that have attempted to do some stuff for black folks here in Atlanta, but I don't know, maybe it's because I'm not from Atlanta, I'm just kind of on the outside looking in, if you will. But I would say, based on the experience I've had, dealing with folks here in Atlanta over the past year or so, I will tell you that I can see exactly what the hell is going on here. I mean, you got the women out here can't go run to a cosmetic surgeon fast enough because all of them just go to Hartsfield Jackson, go straight and go south to Miami and go get a BBL. Then sit here and drive around every Negro running to the Louis store and they're going to Nordstrom's and Saks Fifth Avenue to go grab a pair of red bottoms and everything else. And I mean, I kid you not. Do you ever go to in the past year of me going back and forth here? My wife and I went to the Lenox Mall, I don't know, maybe 2 or 3 times. And I kid you not, all the times we went, you will if you go to the Louis store, you go to any of these other high-end stores, you will see lines around the damn corner. Number Negroes. No other group of people. Number Negroes. And something else that kind of really bothered me about Atlanta. Do you realize Lenox Mall is the only mall I've ever been to? And I've been to I don't know how many damn malls in my life in various states in this country. Lenox Mall is the only mall I went to where they actually have valet parking.
Word?
Yeah, valet parking. In fact, half the parking lot is blocked off for valet parking at the Lenox Mall. I
Now
kid you.
that is definitely sound like a Southern hospitality.
And you got Negroes pulling up in everything from Scat Packs and Hellcats and, Corvettes and every damn thing else to go spend like $30 to get somebody to park your car while you go into a damn mall. Because the valet parking area is right outside the Apple Store. For those who've been to Atlanta or live in Atlanta, whatever, they know what I'm talking about. But it was the first time I've ever been, and I've been to some pretty high-end malls, Mall of America in Minnesota. I've been to all these, I've been to the one in, I can't think of the other one, used to be the largest mall for a long time, in Syracuse, New York. Been in all those malls. Never seen anything like what I've seen here. But, and I say it because the principal people using the valet parking are Black folks. You go throw money away on valet parking for a damn mall. I mean, it's the most insane thing ever. Like, the folks, because I know some of the brothers in the chat, they from Atlanta, live or have lived in Atlanta, and they know what I'm talking about.
Yeah, I'm seeing the comments, and it's almost like we awakened some PTSD with some of the brothers in the chat.
So no, I said it to say, look, while there are some things that Black folks have done well, but you can't have this type of inequality right here. And yes, while there is systemic issues, I think it's also fair to say that Black folks have just been BSing. They've been screwing around, and we've all heard the stuff. Now you got Black folks talking about some FBA crap. They're blaming immigrants for everything. Look, man, you can't blame immigrants and say every immigrant coming here and getting off the damn plane and got a box of Lucky Charms and a pot of gold and told to go make something of yourself. Because I got some data that shows that, yeah, even some of the immigrants are doing better than Negroes. But that was the end for that article. We can go on to the next spot because there's some more stuff because it gets worse, Jim. It gets worse.
Yeah. Now the next article I do have access to that one. So
okay, sir.
We'll definitely be able to look at this all together. So this one is titled Atlanta Public Schools to Continue Academic Recovery Plan in Wake of Low Milestones Scores.
Yeah. So as everyone knows that, you're in school, kids in elementary school, they go through standardized testing like every other student, and Atlanta is no different. So this article kind of talks about what happened, some of the data that come out from standardized test scores this year. So this one was in July of this year. So the latter part of July of this year. So I'll start off with here. Atlanta Public Schools will continue implementing its academic recovery plan as the new school year begins on August 1st. In the wake of results showing further decreases in the Georgia Milestones student assessments. Now, I do want to say this real quick. I know a number of folks who who are who work within the Atlanta public school system, and they will back up every damn thing that I'm reading in this article and any comments I'm going to make out in response to this article. Because these numbers are pretty damn disturbing. But let's continue. The latest milestone scores indicate that 31.2% of APS students in grades 3 through 8 score proficient or above in English language arts, ELA, and only 26% score proficient or above in math. That's
Wow.
actually down from 2020 and 2021 assessment, where 36% scored at proficient or above in ELA and 28% in math. It should be noted many students did not take the milestone assessments while learning from home due to the COVID-19 pandemic. So let's just stop right here. So a number of the students didn't even take the assessment because of COVID-19. So what that really means is that it is highly likely those numbers might have been even lower.
Right. I mean, just looking at the numbers right now, 31% between the grades of 3rd and 8th scored at or above in the English language arts. That's not even close to a third.
Yeah. If you flip that around and put it this way and say that roughly about 70% of students do not score proficiently or above in English language arts.
Wow.
So if you just flip that around, just say 70% of students failed to score at a proficient level or above in English. And you, comparatively speaking, 26% score proficient or above in math. So if you flip that around, you can say 74% of students failed to score at grade level or higher in math. And this is taking into account that they had a significant number of students who did not even take the assessment. So it is highly probable that those numbers will probably be even lower. I want this to sink in. This isn't Dr. Phoenix's data. This is coming straight from the folks. Officials said the full impact of lost learning time during the pandemic can now be seen. While our teachers and students worked extremely hard last year under challenging circumstances, we expect these outcomes, says APS student Dr. Lisa Herring said in a statement. We know we have to do work, we have strategies in place to support our students from a whole child perspective, and we will be using this year's data as a baseline and a way to guide our progress towards future success. At the beginning of this last school year, APS began implementing a 3-year academic recovery plan through the 2023-2024 school year to address lost learning opportunities due to the pandemic. It features 1 school-based initiative, class block course, August 21 through May 2024. Elementary school, 30 extra minutes in class. Middle school, 45 extra minutes. 4 days each week, A block, ELA, or math class. High school, 90 extra minutes, 4 days each week, a class or course only for students identified for intervention. Summer academic recovery, ARA, June 2021 through June 2023. Full day sessions for elementary and middle school students focus on literacy and math with enrichment activities in the afternoon. Credit recovery for high school students. Comprehensive assessment, ongoing K-12 screening for academics and behavioral health. Student progress monitoring tools, formative assessments. Damn it, I'm just gonna be honest here. This is not gonna do you any good. You got the vast majority of Black students in APS with IEPs or individual education plan. So this is not my wheelhouse per se, but I will say this much. Students are oftentimes evaluated by medical professionals to ensure that their learning issues are not medically related, i.e., they don't have any congenital issues, nothing like Down syndrome, Klinefelter's, anything like that, anything that would contribute to some form of mental impairment, if you will. And in my experience, I have yet to see a kid who's ever had a learning issue directly that was related to a medical problem. In fact, 99% of the time, there's nothing wrong with the child at all. They are 100%, they are healthy. So what does this really mean? What this really means, and this is something we're going to delve into on a later, on part 3 actually, but I just kind of want to highlight this because what's happening and what has been happening here in Atlanta and academic achievement in Atlanta, especially among Black children, is that you have a whole culture in Atlanta.
There it is. There it is.
And it get the bad culture. I don't know any other way to say it other than that. Because the fundamental issue in, contrary to what your boy Umar Johnson says, because he goes into this whole idea about IEPs and schools forcing Black children into special education, which is wholesale BS. No child gets into special education or get an IEP plan without the parent signing off or requesting it. In other words, the parents put the child in special ed. And all of these children are all products of single mother homes. Every single one. There are a few exceptions, but the vast majority are products of single mother homes. And the more important issue here is for Black men to understand that while it is certainly one of these issues that, for at least for us in this sector, it doesn't necessarily concern us because we have our own plans and our own ideas what we're going to do with our lives. But why is this important? Because this goes back to the Deion Sanders issue. These are children who eventually become adults and become adolescents and then adults. And these are fatherless children. So these are children who grew up in a home where it is so common, and I have heard the audio. You should hear some of the damn mouths on these children. You can think of your funniest Black comedians that had the worst potty mouth ever. And the words that I've heard coming out of some of these children's mouths make them seem tame by comparison.
Mm-hmm. You're right.
And this is not a white supremacy issue. This is a cultural issue. When you have Black children Black boys specifically. The boys tend to be, if I can be really frank here, without trying to cast aspersions on an entire group or even more or less even feeding into a stereotype, if you will. But I think it needs to be said with the risk of sounding like I'm feeding into a stereotype. The Black boys are oftentimes quite violent.
Yep.
Especially with the teachers, a lot of the support staff. I've heard the audio. I've heard the words coming out of these boys' mouth. You can't even repeat it down here. And these are 9 and 10 and 11-year-olds talking like this. You know, I remember when I was growing up, when I was in elementary school, you've always had the kids you would consider, they didn't have everything. They didn't have all their mental faculties there. There was something not quite right, if you will. But I remember growing up, that wasn't a sizable portion of the student population. Hell, wasn't even the majority.
Right.
I mean, you've always had the special education, and everyone, when I was growing up, and I can imagine for a lot of brothers in our age group, when you was growing up, you remember it. It wasn't you got 3/4 of the damn class with IEPs and special education. You had a handful of students who had those issues, and they had their separate interventions for them. But now you have kids out here, Black children, who have some of the nastiest mouths you have ever heard. I mean, violent, throwing chairs, hitting, kicking, threatening. And this is commonplace. This happens daily in Atlanta public schools. Like I said, I've talked about in the past why brothers should really consider careers in healthcare, because healthcare intersects with everything. You really want to get your pulse on Black America, be in healthcare, because you see everything. And again, I'm not going to go into too in depth with this, because we're going to hit on this definitely on a later date with a part 3 to this culture bomb. But let's move on to the next. We don't need to talk about anything else, because I think that was. Let's move on to the next, because I don't think we need to talk about that anymore, because that's something we're definitely going to talk about at a later date.
Right on, right on. So right now, pulling up the next article and just check in real quick. Yep, I got access to this. So this next one, pulling up right now.
Before we go, you didn't have anything else? You didn't have anything you wanted to say about it before we move on?
Honestly, somebody in the chat said it best. Atlanta is done. I will make sure my future kids, if they meet anybody from Atlanta, better be like, you're just an acquaintance. Otherwise, you will be disowned if you try to get anywhere near that cesspool.
No, and that you know what, you took the words right out of my mouth, but that's exactly what I was thinking of Atlanta, and that Atlanta truly is a cesspool. I mean, you got the women that are walking petri dishes. I mean, the rampant Black male homelessness in Atlanta. I kid you not. I don't care if you're on the 75, you're hitting one of the interchanges here in Atlanta. I mean, it's like tent city on every interstate. You go to some of the major overpasses, especially if you're in like Midtown or near downtown area. I mean, it is tent city. In fact, it was so bad. I think they've cleared out a lot of those tent cities that were on a lot of those interchanges, especially that interchange near the I-20, where the I-75 feeds into the I-20. I mean, there was a lot of homeless encampments there, and you know, so much of what has happened in Atlanta has been, on one hand, it has been systemic, but on the other hand, a lot of it has been very much preventable. You can't been voting for damn near 50 years for nothing but black mayors and ain't got nothing from the damn deal here. Hell, you can't sit here and say Atlanta was once the black entertainment capital of the country and Negroes ain't got nothing to show for it. Other than some damn Killer Mike doing one of his little stupid talks or whatever you will, interviews or whatever. These things have been going on for so many years in Atlanta. But Atlanta has always had this air of this mythos about it being the Wakanda, the black Wakanda, and oh yeah, you know, black folks got an economy going here. Anyone that's been here and you've been here long enough, you quickly find out black folks ain't got nothing of any value going on. And truth be told, the black folks with money here ain't native Atlantans. The folks who are native to Atlanta are getting displaced by black folks who aren't native to Atlanta who got the damn money.
Makes sense.
All right, so let's read this next article here.
All right. This one said, beloved benefit shines light on one of Metro Atlanta's top challenges. What could that be?
Yeah, so this article was written in July of this year. So let's get to this. Atlanta has the worst income inequality in the country, and it has one of the lowest economic mobility numbers in the country. So if anyone's not familiar with what the economic mobility number basically is just a value that is assigned, and usually the percentage that usually dictates the chances of someone escaping, moving up the socioeconomic ladder, if you will. So in other words, if you're born into poverty, the chances of you getting out of that and moving into, let's say, you know, middle income, upper middle income, and higher, if you will. So that's what she's referring to in this article. At the beloved benefit dinner on July 7th, there was a newspaper journal at everyone's seat that shared the following statement. A child born into an impoverished Atlanta family has just a 4% chance of escaping their financial circumstances in their lifetime.
Okay, that statement is misleading because they try to make it seem like this is the average child born in an impoverished Atlanta family. But it's like, no. There's a difference. Because if you're telling me that the average white family is making $60,000 more than the average black family, yeah, this is a cultural issue, not some sort of economic issue.
Yeah, and that really goes to the core of this discussion is, are these really systemic white supremacy issues, or are they also cultural issues, or rather a combination of both? Because while it's easy to say that, yeah, everything is white supremacy, but there are things that are very much in black folks' control. And so, generally speaking, people who have, if you notice, typically, and this is true throughout history, poor people have children, and lots of children.
Mm-hmm.
And there was very specific reasons behind that. One, poor people tend to have a lot of children because you needed more children to work and to
Mhm.
contribute to the family income.
Yep.
But as people, certainly we've seen this and here in America, as people were able to move up the socioeconomic ladder, they were able to get more affluent, they were able to make more money, and so on and so forth. The number, even couples, married couples, typically don't have no more than 1 to 2 children. Sometimes you'll see 3, you might see maybe a little 4th head might pop out sometimes. But mostly, you usually see about 2, maybe 3 children. Usually, most of the time, it's usually 2. And there's a reason why historically, when they talked about the nuclear family, it always included man, wife, 2 children.
Mm-hmm.
Because typically for families who didn't where finances weren't an issue per se, they didn't need to have all the children to supplement the family's income.
Yep.
And so you're 100% right, because it is very misleading, because there's some other data we're gonna get into here, but let's continue. During that program, Atlanta Mayor Andre Dickens picked up on that theme. We have the greatest income inequality in almost any other city, Dickens told the attendees. What we're talking about here today is economic mobility. Economic mobility is a game changer. It's how families have gone from renting to owning their homes. I'm going to say something about renting and owning homes, especially here in Atlanta. Anybody that's lived in Atlanta knows damn well the damn housing market in Atlanta has been extremely inflated. You got folks paying 20, 30, 50, 100 grand over asking for homes that many of them are not, the vast majority of them not even happy with right now. Lots of reports of them came out in this year alone talking about a lot of folks who jumped on that COVID rush to buy homes, and they got into bidding wars, and so they're paying significantly over asking. But now, for a home that they're not even happy with, but more importantly, now you're stuck in, well, depending on where you, now they offering 45-year mortgages now. Usually, originally it was like 30-year mortgages. Now they offering 45-year mortgages.
Yep.
And and my wife and I, we were having this conversation because a friend, she was in graduate school with, well, I ain't gonna say a friend, a colleague of hers. She was in graduate school with. She had just recently bought a house in Atlanta, and she was posting all over her IG and whatever. And my wife was saying to me, yeah, she's kind of full of shit. Because she overpaid for this damn home. And of course, she's a Black female. No man in sight, no prospects for any man trying to marry her, anything like that. But she brought her home, and I'm like, I say, homes aren't technically meant for single women. they're that's why they call them single family homes.
Right. Doc, that's one thing that gets me when, you hear people, especially in the Black sector of YouTube, talk about, well, these women, they can buy their own homes and everything and whatnot. And it's like, yeah, they could, but is that the smart thing to do?
No,
Not if you not trying to have a family.
Yeah. And I told her, and I said, well, did she at least get it in a desirable area? No, she didn't. No. And I'm like, oh, yeah, interesting. Funny how that works. And of course, there was another Black woman that talked her into buying a home. The real estate agent was a Black female. course, because I swear, man, people talk about car salesmen, but they don't tell you about, man, these real estate agents ain't got no problems walking black females straight into a
Mhm.
a mortgage that, yeah, many of them don't seem to understand. Yeah, you kind of locked into it now.
Yeah. It's something you mentioned, Doc, because I just read an article roughly about 2 days ago where they're now talking about how people who have overpaid for their house are now swamped because with the value of homes now going down,
Yeah,
there's no equity.
yeah. You got no equity. And like I said, Atlanta has had one of the most inflated housing markets in the country. People were regularly paying tens of thousands of dollars over asking. They were getting into bidding wars. And so the article you're talking about, the article you just mentioned, yeah. I mean, I mean, hits right home to really the principal problem with buying home, especially keep it frank, keep it be honest here, because it's not a really an area I tend to go into. I do not go into, which is I don't really go into sort of the whole black female thing. But I will say this: black women buying homes is only meant so that she can have some form of control over any black man she gets into a relationship.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. They don't go into that detail, but everybody knows it. Like you said,
Mm.
that's why a lot of real estate agents and all, when they know that there's a single black woman on the market, they
Yeah,
they purposely target that demographic.
yeah, absolutely. Because you can assuage their ego, and you can walk them right into one of these 30, 45 year mortgages on a home that they've already done paid well over asking for. Now you owe more than a home is worth. You have no equity. You have negative equity,
Hmm.
and you think you go meet a man who's what he's gonna move in and help you pay the damn mortgage. The levels of insanity here. But no, you're absolutely right. It has become so easy to target single black women because these companies they do these industries they do plenty of research. They understand exactly what the problem is. They understand what's going on out here. They understand what black women are looking for. But let's continue. Economic mobility numbers came out of a 2014 comprehensive study done by Raj Chetty, an economics professor at Harvard University. Chetty studied the top 50 metro areas in the country to see what percentage of children born in the lowest income bracket, the bottom 20%, will rise to the highest income bracket, the top 20% in their lifetime. Metro Atlanta numbers were dismal. Only 4.5% of children went from the lowest income rung to the highest, giving Metro Atlanta a rank of 49 out of the top 50 metro areas in the country. The only city that had lower results than Atlanta was Charlotte, which ranked number 50th, with only 4.4% of children going from poverty to the highest income rung. That ended up being a wake-up call for Charlotte's leaders who galvanized around a common vision to improve economic mobility for their metro area. Several organizations, including the Foundation for the Carolinas, partnered to bring Raj Chetty and his team back to conduct deeper research that could lead to solutions. They produced a 2020 report, the Charlotte Opportunity Initiative, that identified tangible ways the community can improve economic mobility of its residents. Because the Charlotte community has been focused on economic mobility issues, there is a strong possibility that these numbers have improved, which means Atlanta could be dead last. Unfortunately, Metro Atlanta's response to its economic mobility ranking has been scattered and confusing, partly because people often conflate economic mobility numbers with Atlanta's income inequality numbers. Or let me say it another way. Negroes think because you can go shop at Nordstrom's, you ain't poor.
Or the fact that you driving a Hellcat, you're not poor.
Exactly. You're paying $1,700 a month on a goddamn Hellcat, and you're not poor. So let's continue. Carter then said, income inequality rankings are just for the city of Atlanta, not the metro area. And Atlanta's record is by far the worst among the top 100 cities in the country. In a 2019 analysis, the National Equity Atlas took the ratio of household incomes in the top 5% versus the bottom 20%. Atlanta's score was 20.21, the highest in the country by far. The next closest city, was New Orleans, number 2, with a rank of 17.25. The city with the lowest rank was Aurora, Colorado, with a 6.17. What skews the numbers is that we have some of the wealthiest neighborhoods in the whole country. I'm talking about Buckhead. Again, we keep going back to Buckhead. I don't think, when I tell you, for folks who live in Atlanta, you might live in Buckhead. When I tell you money is in your face in this city, it is in your damn face. Every day. Everyone comes to Buckhead to shop. Because this is where all your high-end stores are at, in Buckhead. This is why some of your early seasons of some of the Black reality shows focused on Buckhead. Why? Because the Buckhead is the place to be in Atlanta, more so than Midtown. Because really, the draw of Midtown is really the restaurants and really Georgia Tech and Emory. But as a whole, I mean, you do have some shopping areas like Atlantic Station and stuff like that, but that's neither here nor there. But the point is, when you want to go to the high-end stores, everyone's running to Buckhead, whether it's Saks Fifth Avenue, Tom Ford, the Louis Vuitton stores. I mean, you go into the Lenox Mall, like I said, you got everything from Audemars Piguet, which is ultra high-end watch manufacturers. You got Rolex. I mean, you have everything there. So if you seek it, you will find it. And that's why everyone keeps referencing Buckhead. Because I like I said, I know there's brothers in the chat that, they live in Atlanta or currently live in Atlanta, whatever. But, they will attest to what I'm saying. And if you're shopping, Buckhead is the place where people go. Well, let's continue, sir. And then we have some of the poorest neighborhoods, because that is an issue for just the city of Atlanta, which represents less than 10% of the metro Atlanta's population. Let's focus on regional economic mobility figures. So again, the actual city of Atlanta itself is really a small portion compared to the greater metro Atlanta. When they talk about metro Atlanta, they talk about everything from Sandy Springs, Marietta, even Alpharetta, to be frank, all the way south to Thomasville and some of the other areas. So, I mean, it includes a lot of the major counties and cities, Decatur, all of that. Cobb County, Fulton County, all of that. So the actual city of Atlanta itself is actually a small piece, which is part of why the numbers are so skewed. So, because again, Black folks live within the actual city itself, but then all the folks with money live in those outer areas. That's why they got this whole little segment that they call the perimeter of Atlanta, because that's essentially what it is. It's basically all your high income areas. Everything from Sandy Springs, Brookhaven, obviously that includes Buckhead. Now, Midtown isn't technically part of that perimeter, but again, I will throw it in the mix because anyone that's been in Midtown know lots of money. Well, let's continue, sir. Before the pandemic, Raphael Bostic, president of the Federal Reserve Bank of Atlanta, gently challenged the Atlanta community to follow Charlotte's lead with a coordinated response to Atlanta's dismal showing. I think we're on the cusp of something, Bostic said in a recent interview. Then the pandemic stunned everybody. Larger, more ambitious goals got put on the shelf. When you think about that moment and that energy, I think the opportunity is still there, but it will require restarting the engine. Bostic, who is marking his 5th anniversary in Atlanta, holds key leadership roles. He chairs both the Metro Atlanta Chamber and the board of the United Way of Greater Atlanta. Those are 2 of the 4 major entities in Metro Atlanta that have a regional purview. The two others, are the Community Foundation for Greater Atlanta and the Atlanta Regional Commission. So to address the low economic mobility outcomes in Metro Atlanta, it will take a regional response to tackle that effort. I'm not sure it's necessary to bring Chetty of Harvard here, Bostic said. I think Charlotte's report and roadmap success could be a guide for Atlanta, but Charlotte's experience demonstrates that the most important thing might be for the key parties in the region, which definitely includes at a minimum the 4 you cite, to come together and demonstrate a commitment for progress on this front. We have an opportunity to focus our regional blah, 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 blah. Anyway, we don't need to read the rest of that. Got any comments you want to add to this?
Good, sir. To me, they're talking about the problem, but they're not addressing the root cause of the problem. And we all know what is that root cause. To me, if you want to know how to get economic mobility, you got to go from household to household. That's where the root problem is. And I'm just going to be honest, they don't want to address that, because to do so, you got to address the main head honcho of that household, and that is the Black female.
No, and you're absolutely correct. Economic viability starts in the home.
Mm-hmm.
And again, when you have the average Black household, not just in Atlanta, but in America, period, that's led by a single mother, and truth be told, a very unscrupulous, skullduggerous woman, because she didn't end up a single mother on accident. Make no mistake about it.
Man. Okay, so I got this next article, and this one actually gives a diagram off of the first article you just read, sir. And I think the people really need to pay attention to this particular article, because let me just share it. Let me just share it, and you can walk us through it.
Yeah. Yeah. So this one is from the Atlanta Wealth Building Initiative. It was mentioned in the previous article I was reading. So let's talk about it. Like I said, so they actually put up a diagram. They have a few diagrams here representing the wealth gap in Atlanta. So we'll just start off here by the caption here that's highlighted in purple. Atlanta is the #1 city for income inequality in America. In fact, if a person is born into poverty in Atlanta, there's just a 4% chance of escaping poverty in their lifetime. Across all measures of household financial security, households of color are faring worse than white households in Atlanta. Almost 70% of Black families are liquid asset poor compared to 22% of white families. I want this to sink in. What that means is that Black folks ain't got no cash.
Nope.
They don't have any cash. Bank accounts are empty. You ain't even got $1,000 if you needed $1,000 in an emergency. And you wouldn't think that was true with the way Negroes are lined up at Lenox Mall and all these other stores to go shop till you drop. You would think it was the inverse. That white folks are poor and Black folks, most Black folks are living the high life. Anything you want to add to this before I continue?
I'm just ready for the diagrams, good sir, because that's where the numbers tell the whole story for me.
Yeah. So today, the median household income for Blacks is just 1/3 of that of whites. I want you to highlight. I want this next sentence I'm about to read is important.
Mm-hmm.
The statistics aren't much better for Latinos families, which maintain a median household income of just about half of that of whites. 66% of all Latino families in Atlanta are asset poor. I want to make something really clear. Remember earlier I said that if you'd came to Atlanta about 10, 15 years ago, you really didn't see a significant Latino presence in Atlanta, but now you do. Now, our good brother here just scroll down and here it is, and here's a diagram in Atlanta. So you can see right here, they have the stacks of dollar bills here that represent the median household income for Blacks, Latinos, Asians, and whites. And as you can see, Black folks are at the bottom at 28,105, Latinos at 43,110, Asians 67,285, whites at 83,722.
Growing up, I've heard people, and maybe back in the days in the 90s and all this was probably true about how Atlanta is the chocolate city and you go there and you'll be able to, you know, maybe get some business ideas and whatnot around people that look like you. I'm sorry. In this day and age, looking at these numbers, anybody, okay, you would have to be a fool if you truly believe you can go to Atlanta today and have yourself a Black family if you don't even have a college degree.
A lot of Negroes will sit here and tell you, especially pro-Blacks, they'll sit here and tell you, oh, well, white society just cultivated a bunch of educated non-Black people. They're just slaves to white industries. And if that's true, then what are Black folks?
Ooh, Black folks, there's this new coin. Shout out to SKC. He coined this new term. Sad to say, but the average Black person, or you could say black people, the mantra now is eat, sleep, fight, bus. That's the new mantra for them now. So when you hear somebody talk about, well, these non-black folks that want to do good educationally and whatnot and want to move up in society, they're just in the white supremacist system and everything. It's like, okay, then you believe in the whole caveman mindset of eat, sleep, fight, bus.
That's interesting. That's an interesting mantra. Yeah, and I think that's what you see what's going on in Atlanta, which is why Atlanta is the cesspool that it is. But I do want to personally attack this idea where black folks are going around talking about you got your so-called FBA folks going around talking about, oh well, the government is giving all these other groups of people all this stuff, but they ain't giving them. But the numbers are damn near the same for blacks and Latinos.
Right.
And in Atlanta, which is interesting because if you look in a lot of places, whites are making more. Asians are making more than whites in many other places. But in Atlanta, not so much. White people are making more than everyone else. And I will say that some of that does have to do systemic. But you can't have numbers this damn low, $28,000. You are below the federal poverty line.
Right. And especially when you are the majority of that city.
Yes. And you've been voting black mayors for damn near 50 years. What this suggests that not only is this not just necessarily a systemic issue, but is also very much a cultural issue. You can't have $28,000. Hell, you got CNAs that make more damn money than that.
Right. And not only that, dog, look at this next stat. Over here where it shows the money bags.
Yeah.
The average African American owned business is valued at only 58 grand. Let me just put this in perspective. I work for a university. And yes, I have my bachelor's degree and everything. I work in IT. I make more money right now with just my bachelor's degree than the average African American owned business in Atlanta.
Yeah, and this kind of goes to the heart of, because I've heard these conversations before on YouTube. It doesn't matter if it's the Manosphere or some of these other black channels or whatever, where they're talking about black businesses. Let's keep it up. Let's just be really honest here and just stop all the damn BSing. Black folks aren't creating business. Black folks are just creating goddamn jobs for themselves. That's it. Nothing more, nothing less. The black folks that do have business, I'll tell you the common business you go find here in Atlanta. It's gonna be one of three things. Either gonna be a night spa, a restaurant, or a goddamn barbershop. Or you can find some goddamn hood rat doing somebody's goddamn hair. That's it. You go look at, I was talking about Koreans and Asians in general in Doraville. You go there, they got a whole shopping complex. They got everything from the family practice doctor to the physical therapist to tutoring centers to a giant damn supermarket.
I believe
they got karaoke bars, restaurants, cafes, bakeries. They even got a place, and I visited the place probably about a month or two ago. They even have a place where the gamers go to, where they can go and game, compete in tournaments. I went to the place, went up in there. You got a bunch of young brothers up in there, right there with the white kids and the Asian kids, gaming. Hell, when I went up in there, the Young Brothers were managing the damn place.
Wow. Wow.
And this is in the middle of an Asian shopping center.
And I believe it. Look at the numbers. This is where the Asians beat out the whites because the
Yeah.
whites have an average business value of 658 grand, while Asians come in number one at 706 grand.
You know, the more telling number there is if you look at the dichotomy between Black and Latinos businesses, pardon me. And if you look at the numbers above, the Black and Latino households and liquid assets were damn near the same. But however, the Latino business is like damn near 10 is valued damn near 10 times more than a Black business. So what accounts for that? What are common businesses that Latinos do? Contracting.
Yep.
This is Atlanta. This is the South. People always need work done on the house.
Yep.
You can do work on a house all year round. A lot of the trades. I mean, you got so many Black men love crying and whining every time somebody bring up about Negroes getting a damn degree. Oh, well, we don't need degrees. We just go get trades. But then that would be represented in the numbers. So we know they're not doing the trade. So let's see. Because I can tell you right now, you live in, you go visit these, you go to these residential areas in Atlanta, who do you go see out there doing a lot of the work on the roads? Latinos. Doing the work on these big housing complexes, Latinos. Doing the landscaping, Latinos. And this was even true this is even true in Wisconsin when I had rental properties in Wisconsin and I had to hire some damn Latinos to go fix what some Negroes screwed up.
Yeah. And for sure, it's very true out here out west. Like my dad, especially when it comes to housing projects and all, he only hires Hispanic contractors.
Yeah. I mean, this is the this. I'm just let's just be honest here. You got so many Black men love talking about going to the trades, but I'm telling you, even the most mundane stuff, Negroes say go to trade. Do you realize most of the landscaping work done here? I don't care what city I've been in, it's Latinos showing up.
Yes, sir.
The whole damn family involved, and they got a goddamn restaurant on the side.
Yes, sir.
And niggas talk about, oh, well, we got a restaurant too. Yeah, I done been to the damn Black restaurants. I done been to pretty much every prominent Black restaurant in Atlanta. And I can tell you right now, man, there's only one of them that was actually worth the damn money I spent up in it. It was the only one that I actually sat in there long enough. I actually sat there to actually eat because the rest of them I had to walk out because I spent like 90 damn minutes waiting for an order. This is me and my wife going, and we're just sitting here waiting. But the one restaurant I did go to, the one Black restaurant I did go to, really liked it. Very nice ambiance. Wasn't no loud club music blasting in your ear. No. So, but nonetheless, this is really. I think this is. I posted this article, well, this diagram, so you can see it in some of the most starkest of numbers that, yeah, folks are telling you, like, most of do you realize so many Latinos, oh, no, you good, man, you good, Logic, you fine, man.
Well, speaking of Logic, he was wondering if we have room up here for him to join because he has some data.
Essentially, for the most part, I'm pretty much done. I mean, I was going to talk. Well, actually, probably maybe one more article I want to talk about, but I think the other ones. Well, you know what? Yeah, come on up. Yeah, please do.
All
A long
right.
time since me and Mr. Mr. Logic's finally has spoken. So yeah, love to hear what his thoughts are. No,
Yeah.
like I was saying, if you didn't know any better, I mean, everyone's been hearing the conversations and social media between so-called FBAs and everyone else now for pretty much this entire year. We've seen it. I mean, we've seen it, we've heard it, and basically, FBA folks are running around telling you that, oh, these folks are getting a bunch of help from the government, but that can't be true if the household numbers for Latinos and Black people are virtually the same. They can't be true.
Mm.
But somehow, was making up for that, at least in the way the businesses are being valued here. You know what's making up for that? The next generation.
Yep.
In other words, it's not just these folks are doing the businesses. The parents are doing the businesses, a lot of businesses that Black folks claim that they want to do in the industries they claim they want to be in. No, what's happening, they're making sure the kids are getting the college education and the kids are building the businesses. So now you got first and second generation Latinos who have now surpassed Black folks and put Black folks further down the rabbit hole.
Yep. And they wonder why. They wonder why the so-called political system rather go to the Latino population than do the Black population.
Clue brings up something about taxes in Georgia. A lot of Negroes was running to Georgia talking about, oh yeah, go to these conservative states. Oh, you pay lower taxes. That's bullshit.
Mm-mm.
I pay more taxes in goddamn Georgia than I paid in Illinois, New York, and Wisconsin. You pay a lot of taxes in Georgia, especially. Don't go buy a car here in Georgia. I done brought 2 in the past year, and I'm telling you paying a ridiculous amount in taxes here in Georgia. So,
All right. Well, we are joined by a special professor for this culture bomb, and he's coming as the toaster oven. How's it going, good sir?
Well, first off, I identify as a toaster oven. My pronouns are quick and useful. Do not misgender me or the birthing person who carried me.
Okay. All right. Well, I have been told that you have some data that you would like to share for this discussion.
Well, it's off the cuff and off the fly. However, Dr. Phoenix inspired me to share some data since he mentioned the U.S. Census. The 2000 U.S. Census said that as of the year 2000, the number one minority in the country of America were people of Spanish-speaking origin. Now, this is citizens. This was not counting illegal aliens. These were American citizens. So, what that told the entire world is that as of 2000, Black people were officially third-class citizens in the country of their own birth, but nobody paid attention. If you look at the numbers from the U.S. government, you can choose the agency that you want to look at. There is a alphabet soup of different agencies: Department of Education, Department of Energy, Health and Commerce. Black people have the lowest median household income, the lowest average household values, and they are the poorest performing students in schools. And Spanish-speaking citizens, not counting illegals, Spanish-speaking citizens consistently outperform Black people in every single category. So what does that tell you? You had your turn to drive the bus, you ran it off the ditch, now somebody else is driving the bus for you.
I actually had an article. My wife had sent it to me that was showing that I can't. I tried to bring it up, but for some reason it wouldn't come up. But I was planning to actually share it tonight. It was titled "Undocumented Immigrants who get scholarships participate more in the economy and workforce than Black folks."
And what does that tell you? You know, listen, you are well aware of my background. I'm a classically trained economist. The way that the system of capitalism works is that there is a quote unquote economic engine class. They help to start the economic engine, but they themselves do not participate in the wealth and benefits of their contributions to that economy. Now, historically, there were different groups that occupied this class because historically that class then moves up the socioeconomic strata. For a while, it was the Irish. Then it became the Italians. Then it was Polish for a while, and then it was Black people for a long time. However, when it was time for Black people to move up the socioeconomic strata, they did not do so. Spanish people came along, took that role, and they're actually moving up that ladder and are leaving in larger numbers than anyone cares to admit. Again, nothing I'm telling you here is opinion. This is all verifiable fact for anyone who cares to take the time to sit down and do the actual research.
Yeah, no, and I agree. I think the fundamental issue here is that when you have issues of this systemic nature, it is not one. It cannot 100% be contributed to quote white supremacy, and that was kind of the reason when we was talking about earlier in the chat, Logic, about why did I play the Umar Johnson? Wasn't about the damn school. I can care less about the damn school. It was about him admitting what the real problem was that even preventing him for the past 3 years to even get to school up to code was Black folks. It was the damn work ethic. It was the whole reason why we talked about Deion Sanders and the issues with HBCUs and Black folks having a lack of integrity and morals when it comes to each other. And see, other groups of people don't screw each other over the way Black folks do. That's the truth.
You know,
and other groups of people make it a point to invest in the education of the next generation. Black folks have not made it a point to invest in the education of the next generation. Because see, the Latinos understand, well, yeah, I'm coming over here. Yeah, I'm never gonna go to school. I'm gonna make sure my children do. So if I have to work 3 or 4 goddamn jobs to make sure that they can get through college, they can be the best student that they can be, and they don't have to worry about the things that the average Black person going to college has to worry about. They understand that it comes back in spades. It pays itself back. And so again, Black folks have failed at a cultural level to address the fact that there is no support for your Black professionals, for your Black children who want to go to college. There's no support. And as I was saying last week, you can't serve 2 masters. You can't sit here and expect these folks to be able to get through college, Black folks not have no hand in it, then expect these folks to come back and be beholden to the same community that did nothing to get them in that place, to get them to that place in the first place.
You know, up until as of 1963, here are some more verifiable numbers. Again, not my opinion, not talking points, verifiable fact. As of 1963, Black people as a population group within the United States of America had the highest rates of college enrollment. the highest rates of high school graduation, the highest rates of children born to two-parent households, the highest rate of children born to married households as of 1963. After 63, it dropped like a rock. Now, we can point to say that JFK was shot, and then LBJ became president, created the welfare state with the Great America programs. Systemic, fair enough. But here's the thing. Now we're going to move away from verifiable fact. The general mindset of black America up until 1963 was that education is the great equalizer. And the goal was you had to move into American society and fully integrate. If you have a problem with law enforcement, become police officers, become lawyers, become doctors, become prosecutors, become judges, become bankers, become brokers, move into each and every field of endeavor, and especially the white collar fields. Everyone will not go to college. Fair enough. Everyone won't start a business. Fair enough. But the idea was upward mobility upon the socioeconomic strata. Now, but all of that, I say all of that as starting points. They don't matter now. It's irrelevant. It doesn't matter what happened in 63. It doesn't matter what happened in 1865 or 1619. It's irrelevant. In 2022, it is black culture and the black mindset. Education is reviled. It is refused. Anything that is associated with clear rational thinking and education is deemed therefore white, and therefore must be attacked and ridiculed at any chance possible. Education is the great equalizer. Since you refuse education, this is where you are as your place on the socioeconomic strata. So it keeps coming back to culture and education. I'll leave on this. When I was it was my first year after I graduated college, and someone pulled me aside and he said, listen, I'm going to have this conversation with you because I recognize something about you. This was in my early 20s. He's obviously a baby boomer. And what he said was, do not associate with these people. Leave them alone, because they will destroy you and anything you have and try to create for no other reason than you are daring to soar with eagles while they insist upon crawling upon their bellies. Walk away, look back, only help those who are like you, who are looking to be upward, and leave all that nonsense behind them. It is the best piece of advice I was ever given, and he happened to be black as well. So anyone who says there is no place for you in corporate America, run away from that person, because they are a jackass.
No, and I would concur with that. Go ahead, Sigma Judge. You want to add something, sir?
Nah, it
Yeah,
this
no.
actually,
Go ahead, sir. I'm sorry.
oh no. This actually gonna ties in well because me and Kitty Gakade Jones, we're scheduled to do the Black Ronins Intel the day after Christmas, and we're actually going to delve into how important a college education is. Because
Yeah, actually, I'm glad that you mentioned that, because if you look on the docket, one of the articles I sent was that article that you guys are going to talk about.
oh
And
yeah, I see
yeah,
it.
you guys are going to do it, but you and I are also going to revisit the article too, because it goes into the part 3 of this and why education is important. Because if you guys think this one pissed you off, what we were talking about before we started the stream earlier. Oh, I'm about to hit guys with some stuff they ain't never heard of yet.
Yeah,
Some data that Negroes ain't heard of. You might have suspected it, but you haven't heard of.
I mean, honestly, at the end of the day, as we kind of wrap up the stream and everything, it really is coming down to who you associate with is going to determine your economic status. Like, I'm always of the belief of iron sharpens iron. Not every person that looks like you has good intentions. And I think that's well, I mean, Dr. Oop, oh, no, I'm not going to call him doctor because, that's something else. But Mr. Umar, even he confessed tonight from what we just heard. You can't trust all these black businesses and everything because they don't have morals. They don't have honor. So when you have somebody who call himself a Pan-Africanist admitting that, hey, I had to hire a non-black business in order to get the job done, that should be the call of, you know what? If you're a competent black person, don't care male or female, if you're a competent black person, you just need to focus on yourself. Make sure you are on status with regular society or high levels of society, and then make sure your family is up to par as well. Because at this point, if you truly are on this notion of, so to speak, rebuilding the black family or restoring black love, I'm sorry. That ship has already been sent to the bottom of the ocean. Davy Jones Locker has that ship for many decades now.
You bring up a point that is, I have a serious bone to pick. It's an extremely sore point of contention with me because these pro-blacks they throw out the term Pan-Africanist. They throw out the term diaspora. They throw out terms like, I am my brother's keeper. Yet, with the very same breath, they attack immigrants. They attack the descendants of immigrants. They're first to say people from the Caribbean come to America and they live off the backs of the struggle of American blacks, or they have nothing but the most horrid things to say about Africans who come from Africa. But you claim to be a Pan-Africanist. You claim to be, you throw out this term diaspora, but yet you hate Caribbean and African people. Make that make sense. Furthermore, all of the verifiable economic data says that African immigrants and West Indian immigrants are higher up on the socioeconomic strata than American-born Black Americans. So if anything, one, you should put down your hypocrisy, stop your victim mentality nonsense, and look at what they're doing, because apparently what they are doing, they're doing it right. And whatever you are doing, you're doing wrong. So when you throw out terms like FBA and ADOS, which is all garbage, it's all a bunch of nonsense, it's a race hustle, it's garbage. And your victim, you keep trying to win the first place in the victimhood, the oppression Olympics. You're failing because the people who you have all this vitriol and all of this hate for, they're successful while you're failing. So an intelligent person would say, let me copy their success, because trying to win first place in the oppression Olympics is keeping you where you are at the bottom of the socioeconomic strata, because you're not oppressed. You oppress yourselves. And there is no legacy of slavery. There is all of the victim mentality and the self-oppression that you put yourselves in, because Black American culture is a self-perpetuating, self-destructive cycle of abject failure.
I will just say this much. I will also add to the fact that it's not even just really folks from the quote diaspora or whatever that there's a lot of vitriol for. The vitriol just only began to shift to those groups. The vitriol in Black America has always been for your educated Black folks and your professional Black folks. That's where it began. That's why you've seen this movement now for probably the better part of the last decade to discredit folks with college degrees. to say that college degrees aren't worth a damn. They aren't important. They haven't changed anything. But you know who ain't struggling? You know what black folks ain't struggling? The college educated folks aren't really struggling. And see, that's part of where they kind of, the data doesn't really parse that out. But we all know this to be true, especially in places like Atlanta, where you can see black folks with money all the time. You know, that the black folks with money, they can afford to live in places like Buckhead or Midtown or wherever. They can afford those places. And most of those folks, like I said earlier, are not even native to Atlanta. But more importantly, the reason these ideas, someone always has to be the boogeyman in this story. So it's not just the big boogeyman, white supremacy. No, you have these smaller boogeymen, the educated black folks, the professional black folks, your boule, if you will. Now it's your black immigrants. Someone always has to be this boogeyman. And right now, if you listen to the rhetoric right now, you got all of these folks with boogeyman, because black folks have been trying to reinvent the goddamn wheel now for the better part of the last 40 goddamn years.
Since '68.
Well, let me add 2 more decades, make it 60.
All right.
I have 2 words for you: educated lame. That tells you everything you need to know right there. That right there is part and parcel of the problem. Anything that is related to proper speech, proper education, proper mannerisms, I'll say it, acting like a normal human being is called being white. So if speaking clear, coherent English in an English-speaking country and acting like a normal human being is considered being white and acting white and talking white, what language are you talking? Moron?
Oh, I got it for you, Toaster.
How are you acting? Farm animal?
Well, yeah, I got it for you. SKC has come up with a new term for how black America gets along. Eat, sleep, fight, bus. That's the mantra.
I know we're up against time, so I will leave with this final thought before we go off air, because I am mindful of your time, Sigma and Doc Phoenix. I will say this. Problem, again, is culture. What is black? Whatever this whole black thing is, it's a self-destructive, self-perpetual cycle of failure. You don't have a culture. You don't have a history. You have nothing productive. Nothing. You have tried to latch onto something based on skin color and nothing else. It is self-destructive. It is self-perpetuating, and it will continue to be so until you open your eyes. You're American. You're American. Even when you say you're African, Africa is a continent. Italians don't say they're European. French don't say they're French. German don't say they're German. Turks don't. I'm sorry, they don't. None of them say they're European. Europe is a continent. Same like Africa. You don't know where you're from. You're from America. You have a vested interest in the country of your birth because that's where you and your loved ones are. Integrate into the society and be productive. That's all I have to say.
Yeah, I think that's a good way to end it, because as far as I'm concerned, if you thought this pissed you off, the stream the part 3 to this we have coming up in a couple of weeks. Yeah, we're really gonna get into this ideal of language, literacy, and vocabulary. Okay? Because the data that I'm going to come with in a couple of weeks is really going to put in perspective what Logic was just describing. And make no mistake about it, one of the things that I've seen in my life that I've been purview to and not just me, folks like me, my wife, folks I know, and maybe some of the brothers, some of the other brothers in the chat. You know, if you're a Black person with success, you've had to work 10 times as hard to get to get that success, however small or however large it is. And you know what the fundamental issue is? It's not because, quote, necessarily white folks stopped you from getting. Oftentimes it's because Black folks stopped you from getting. They asked you, why are you going to college? Go do this.
Mhm.
What the? Oh, well, college is expensive. What do you get out of going to college? I'll tell you what I got out of going to college. I got a network that has allowed me to circumvent a lot of the BS that I had to deal with in Black America. But
Well,
somehow it becomes incumbent upon folks like me to come back to Black America and help them do something that they've never supported me in doing.
ask them what college did for Ronald McNair. Ask them what college did for Reginald Lewis. Ask them what college did for Kenneth Chenault. What it did for Richard Parsons. What it did for Robert F. Smith.
Oh, well, college matters then when Robert L. Smith comes to an HBCU and pays off the debt of all the damn graduates.
Which is another thing. Robert F. Smith did not, and I'll say that loud and clear, Robert F. Smith did not help any effing community. He helped the best and the brightest. The same advice that I was given some 30 plus years ago, he did. You help those who were walking the same path as you. He did not help a community. He helped college graduates. College graduates is who he helped. Okay? AAVE is a disgusting thing. If you were born and raised in America and you refuse to speak clear, coherent English, you are a savage, is what you are. You're an animal.
I got some data on that one, man. Yeah.
Oh yeah. Well, let me
you got
let me
you
go
got
ahead.
to be tripping on that one.
Yeah, let me go ahead and let the audience know. So the next Culture Bomb Part 3 is going to be right after, actually it's going to be the evening of New Year's Day. You definitely want to tune into that because we are going to start off the new year with a bang. And I will tell you right now, just like what Dr. Phoenix says, I've already have heard a little bit of that data, but I'll tell you this much. Abandon ship while you can. Abandon ship while you can. So, with that said, Doc, your final words on this session before we close out.
You know, I think we closed out having the conversation between the three of us for the past 20 minutes or so. I think is the best way to close this out. I don't really have nothing more to say other than I wish the gentlemen of the Ronins a very Merry Christmas and a very happy holidays. And I hope you guys stay safe. If you're in Atlanta, stay off them damn streets. But yes, have a great holiday for everyone. I hope everyone enjoys their time with their families, significant others, what have you. And I will see everyone on New Year's evening, the day of New Year's. I'll see you guys that evening.
Right on, right on. So shout out to Dr. Phoenix. This was the last session for 2022. And like he said, the next one will be in 2023. And it will definitely be a banger. So you'll want to tune in for that. But definitely shout out to Dr. Phoenix and shout out to Toaster Oven. You'll probably see him on tomorrow during our State of Mail Entertainment stream because we also got some stuff to talk about on that. Until next time, thanks everybody for showing up. See you on the other side.